It's 20 to 12, Sunday morning with Helen Clare. We've been talking about dreaming, in some cases dreaming big, this morning. You're about to meet an English and drama teacher of more than 30 years' experience who lives near Crescent Head on the mid-north coast. His name is Chris Dockrill, and Chris has dreamed up a crazy character called Dr. Moron, who is the star of a rock musical called The Island of Dr. Moron. I would love to know, Chris, how do you dream up a rock musical? Was this literally something that came to you in the wee small hours?
Well, it's interesting you should ask that because the idea, Helen, for Dr. Moron really did come to me in a flash on the last night of another rock musical that I've written, and I was watching the end of the last scene, and I thought, what the hell am I going to do now? What do I come up with to beat this one? And I just got this flash of the mutated creatures, these mutated sort of half animal, half human creatures, obviously drawing on the island of Dr. Moreau for that initial inspiration. But I thought the visual impact of these creatures moving to really driving rock music on stage would really get people in. And so, as I said, it was a flash. It was an image, and from there, the island of Dr. Moron became a reality.
I probably should know this, but can you tell me about the island of Dr. Moreau?
Well, The Island of Dr. Moreau is a classic English novel by H.G. Wells.
So you're really ignorant if you don't know about it?
Oh, no, not really. No, don't worry about that. No, there's too many books in the world to sort of keep up with all of them. But I'll say up front that the idea, the image for my show came from that initial sort of idea from Dr. Moreau. From that, there is really no resemblance between the two works, and I've been very careful to make sure there isn't, for all sorts of copyright and royalty reasons. Yeah, The Island of Dr. Moreau is all about a doctor who lives on an island and is trying to find the key to perfect the transmutation of animals into people to elevate everybody to a state of civilized sort of stature. Whereas my doctor, and he actually says in the play, Dr. Moron says to his captives, he said, there was another doctor once, silly man, he had it all wrong. He tried to turn animals into humans, whereas I want to unleash the beast in all of us. And that's his plan. So he takes humans and then turns them into animals. And so that's what we see on stage is his retinue of half-mutated creatures who used to be human but are now wild animals.
What a far-out idea. Now, look, it mustn't be a bad idea because you've already got the endorsement of Jack Thompson,
yes,
legendary Australian actor.
Yes, Jack's kindly endorsed our prospectus. Jack is a lovely man, and he loves the idea of the island of Dr. Moron, and he also loves the idea that we've actually planned, if and when this show takes off, to donate some of our proceeds from our opening season to a new charity called the Arts Health Institute, the AHI, and Jack really liked that idea. You know his history. He associates with a lot of good causes.
I just love his voice. To me, the voice of Jack Thompson is almost like the quintessential Aussie bloke voice, isn't it?
Yeah.
He was hard and tough and wiry, just the sort that won't say die. There was courage in his quick, impatient tread, and he bore the badge of gameness in his bright and fiery eye.
It's a beautiful voice.
That's right.
Yeah. I will ask you more about the Arts Health Initiative because I'm I'm intrigued to know more about that. But here you are, a bloke who's been teaching English and drama at what school?
Kempsey High School for the last 25 years.
On the side, writing plays, writing musicals. Now, when I think of a rock musical, I think I'm not as cultured as I'd like to be. I have to say that from the outset. But I think of the Rocky Horror Show. You might think of Hair, those sorts of things. Yep. There aren't so many of them around these days.
Exactly. In fact, a good friend of mine who's in the industry, he has constantly introduced me and my show. He says, "This is Chris. He's written what could be the Rocky Horror of the 21st century." And you're dead right, Helen, in that there is a dearth of musicals like this. 2 weeks ago, I was in Sydney. I try to see as many musicals as possible, obviously, for professional, if not for entertainment reasons. And I couldn't help thinking that week in Sydney, what was on offer was A Chorus Line, a brilliant show, which we went to see, and South Pacific. And I thought, and this is my dilemma. This is why you have this really slick prospectus in front of you. The dilemma is, I've been to some of the biggest entertainment entrepreneurs in the country, and they say variations of the same thing. Yes, this is a great idea. And that's interesting. They all seem to pick a different song. I love that song, such and such. But then they say, but we're not willing to invest $2 to $4 million in a show we haven't seen. And it's a chicken and egg dilemma where you can't get a show up, a new show up to be seen, to be financed, to succeed.
So there's the dilemma for a bloke like you that doesn't have a last name like Lloyd Webber.
Yes. Yep.
You might have the best idea in the world, but actually getting it on the stage, is it that much money? Is it millions of dollars to get it?
Oh, millions.
Staged?
In fact, that's why, I mean, we're looking at a $500,000 fundraising to produce a very short but equally professional season of this show. But, I mean, most big musicals, you're talking $4 to $6 million. I mean, just recently, An Officer and a Gentleman was on, and it was actually pulled after 6 weeks because I don't think it was going as well as they'd hoped. And they were talking about a $6.5 million budget for that show.
What gives you the guts, I suppose, to dream that yours actually could be the big hit?
Well, it's more than a dream. We put this show on about 10 years ago when I first wrote it. And we put it on I like to call them hybrid school musicals, because I used senior drama students and dance students, but coupled them with professional musicians. So the sound is uncompromisingly good. Now, we had 5 shows, average attendance 400 people. So we've shown this show to 2,000 people. What was interesting was that many of the audience members came back a second and third time to see it, and most of those people were the adults, not the kids. Like, the kids came back too, but I thought at the time, yes, it really does work. It gets people in. They love the music. They love the craziness of it and the colour of it. And, they come back for more. And I thought, if it worked then, it's going to work on a bigger scale, on a more professional scale. It's going to blow people away.
It's hard to convey that, I suppose, on the radio, isn't it? We haven't got the visuals at the moment. So really, you're talking to people's imaginations.
That's
when you're
right.
talking about this baby of yours, this dream of yours. I wonder whether you could put on the voice of Dr. Moron for me. Run me a few lines so we get a bit of fun, get a bit of more of an idea, I suppose, of what this character's about.
Well, he talks his way through his signature tune. He says, I'm moron, and I'm mean, and I mess with people's genes. Ain't nobody meaner than me. I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm bald, and I'm bad. Lots of people think I'm a loony, but I'm not. I'm just mad. I'm moron, and I rule. Okay?
Chris Dockrill is with us. Chris is from Kempsey on the mid-north coast. He's a retired English and drama teacher, and we're talking about his brainchild. It's a rock musical called The Island of Dr. Moron. The thing is, it's still, I guess, at the seed funding stage. Chris is trying now to get it up and running, to get it on stage. Chris, I want to ask you about the Arts Health Institute, which is the humour-related charity that actually has a bit of a part in this story as well. But if you had to choose one song for us to hear right now on a Sunday morning, what would it be? What number?
Well, probably for a Sunday morning, I'd probably pick Voodoo Zydeco, which talks about Voodoo Valma, who's the other outrageous character on the island, whereas Dr. Moron has a group of mutated beings as his retinue, and he lives in a cave over at Devil's Cove. Voodoo Valma is this far-out Rastafarian type voodoo queen. She's the voodoo queen, yes, and she has a group of followers, and Voodoo Zydeco is basically all about Voodoo Valma.
All right. Well, you're testing the waters here. Sunday morning with Helen Clare on 12:33 ABC Newcastle and ABC New South Wales. You might like to send a text afterwards and let Chris know what you think of his stuff.
Deep in the jungle late at night, you might behold a terrible sight. Farmer's crew are cooking up a brew, a bits and pieces for me and you. Voodoo Zydeco, Voodoo Zydeco, Voodoo Zydeco, Voodoo Zydeco, Voodoo Zydeco, Voodoo Zydeco. She's cooking up a brew for me and you. A big fat cat with furs on her head, shouted and screamed to raise her dead. Puffing smoke and rolling eyes, purple face and yellow eyes. Voodoo Zydeco, Voodoo Zydeco, Voodoo Zydeco.
Sunday morning with Helen Clare. That song is from a rock musical. Maybe in 5 or 10 years' time, that'll be a household name, like the Rocky Horror Picture Show or something like that. It's been written, all the music, but the entire rock musical itself, by Chris Dockrill and his wife, Lynn, who are from Kempsey on the mid-north coast. The name of your property, I read and thought sounded absolutely gorgeous. It's called Delicate Nobby. Where'd you get the name for that?
Well, Delicate Nobby is the name of our little neighbourhood.
It's the locality, is it?
Yeah, and there are about 30 people living at Delicate Nobby, which is about 12 kilometres south of Crescent Head, and it's on one of the few unspoilt strips of coastline left on our east coast. And fortunately now that whole strip from Crescent Head right down to almost 2/3 of the way to Port Macquarie is now national parks.
Wonderful.
So it's locked up and it's going to remain a little bit of paradise for everybody.
Do you know who called it Delicate Nobby and why?
Well, I think our neighbour, a lovely fellow called Len Blacklow, sort of coined the term. Delicate Nobby kind of refers to a small outcrop of rock going out into the ocean. And I think you have a Nobby's Beach here.
We do, indeed.
Right,
Nobby's Headland.
Yeah. Well, we have at Crescent Head, we have Big Nobby, and it's all very Freudian. That's at Crescent Head, and then sort of further down, we've got Delicate Nobby, which is just a tiny little group of rocks that sort of eke their way out into
It's a gorgeous
into the
little
ocean.
name. I love finding out about new places that you've never heard of, which happens often on a Sunday morning. Potato Point was one I learned about last year on the south coast, and more recently, Sunset Strip. Beautiful little place on the Menindee Lakes. Wow. Before I let you go, Chris, thank you for telling us about the island of Dr. Moron. But I want you to tell me too about, there's a charity sort of element to this, and it has to do with laughing, and it also has to do with dementia. Yes,
that's the AHI, which is the Arts Health Institute. It's actually run by, it was started by my friend Jean-Paul Bell. Jean-Paul, by the way, for people who don't know, many people do know Jean-Paul Bell, because he has been an entertainer for decades now, both here and overseas. He started the Clown Doctors many years ago, and many people know about the Clown Doctors and the amazing work that the charity that administers that, the Humour Foundation, the work they do with sick kids in hospitals. Anyway, Jean-Paul's moved on now, and he's looking at the other end of the spectrum. He's looking at elderly patients who suffer from dementia and Alzheimer's-related type conditions. He got the funding to do, he was part of a major funded research into the effects of humour therapy on dementia patients. It was conducted by the New South Wales University. They found that humour therapy was at least as effective as drugs on improving the conditions of patients with dementia.
A simple smile.
It's more than a simple smile. It's tailor-made humour. They actually research the person before they go into the aged care facility. If he's a banker, they will actually script their work to hook into part of that world that he knew.
Really?
That the patient knew.
So targeting the memory of that person.
I guess so, yeah. And they now have, like it's only started last year, but it's massively successful as a charity, and it's now a service provider to dozens of aged care facilities. And I think their biggest problem is basically trying to keep up now with the demand from aged care facilities all over Australia who want their services because they can see how good it is and how effective it is.
So do they do that for free? Or do they?
No, it's a fee for service.
Yep.
But it's all under the umbrella of a not-for-profit organisation. So
Right.
the AHI is a charity.
Yep.
Right, and but they've actually got to charge a fee because it's just such a massive service on such a scale.
I'd actually like to find out more about that.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll invite John Paul Bell in to tell us a little bit more, because I'm looking at this photo. If I'm not mistaken, he is the clown doctor who has been blowing up balloons and making my child laugh when I take him to hospital every 6 weeks or so.
Yeah, well, that'd be him. But what's
Wow.
interesting, somebody said to me, why did you pick Jean Paul as your leading man? Why not a name, like a known musical name? And that's the whole point about The Island of Dr. Moron. It's not a stereotypical musical. And that's one of my criticisms of what's happening in the industry, that they do tend to be sort of become mass-produced stereotypes.
Bit generic.
Yeah, and my message is this is very different. And my leading man is a comedian. He's a comedian first, and that's what you have to expect when you come to the Island of Dr. Moron.
Am I understanding this correctly too? Even when you get your backer and you get this baby up on the stage, maybe it'll be travelling around Australia, maybe it'll be heading off overseas, you're actually going to be donating money to the Arts Health Institute,
yes.
to getting these the laughing going.
Quite honestly, Helen, as you said, I've retired from teaching. I love teaching, and I always promised myself I would retire with regret, wanting more, and that's what's happened. There's not a day goes by that I don't regret. In fact, next week I'm going back in to help some senior drama students. I just don't want to let it go, but I'm following this passion now, the Island of Dr. Moron. I've got to pour the energy into that.
Well, it's been lovely to meet you, find out a bit about, not only about this weird and wonderful character of Dr. Moron, but also about how you've come to this stage. And I'm intrigued too that, retirement, you didn't want to get there. It's not a typical situation either. Lovely to meet you, Chris. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Helen, very much.